The talent at the top of the 2026 NBA draft class is out of this world. The big three of Darryn Peterson, AJ Dybantsa, and Cameron Boozer is frankly the most impressive I've ever seen. The apex so far of this increasingly freakish era of draft talent as prospects just keep evolving to crazier and crazier levels. To put into perspective just how highly I view this top three, last year, I called Cooper Flagg the second best prospect we'd seen in the 2020s, very narrowly surpassing Chet Holmgren, who I considered the best prospect since AD when he came out, who had barely surpassed Evan Mobley before him, who I considered the best prospect in a number of years when he came out. Again, the young talent just keeps getting a little bit freakier. And yet, if Flagg had stayed in this 2026 class, which he was a member of before reclassifying, there's a chance he'd be the fourth best prospect in his own year. I'm not saying that is the case, but I'm saying it is possible I feel that way by the end of the year. All three of these guys are at least in that range as prospects. They are all not just number one overall caliber talents, they're so gifted that they'd be considered a strong number one overall pick. So if you're a very bad team that traded away your first round pick for this year and it lands in that top three, all I can say is you will probably regret it forever. That's how good these guys are. And just a couple of games into their college careers, I have been so impressed at how each of them has lived up to the hype. So now that we've gotten that first look at them all at the collegiate level, let's get into the nuts and bolts of what makes them all special. We'll start with Darryn Peterson, who has emerged as the general favorite to go number one overall, an 18-year-old 6'5" guard at Kansas. Peterson is an exceptionally gifted scorer who looks as if he's going to be one of the most dynamic guards in the NBA someday. He is an outstanding shooter with very good size. He has elite range and supreme confidence as a pull-up shooter, rising up quickly and effortlessly off the dribble as a major threat from anywhere beyond the arc. But just as impressive has been his movement shooting off ball at Kansas. Peterson was a very pick and roll heavy, rather ball dominant player this past season at Prolific Prep, and while he excels there and will be entrusted with the keys to an offense as a primary ball handler, it's rarer to have a player who is great there and is also willing to get off the ball and stress defenses like that. That dual threat skill set is unique and so valuable at the next level. It makes you a great complement to other ball handlers on your team and generally makes you an even more versatile, less predictable, tough cover at all times for the defense. And we have seen some great flashes from Peterson on that front. He's running around screens and punishing defenses for giving him even a tiny bit of room, or at times showing off his ridiculous footwork, balance, and shot making at his size, even when he has no airspace. Peterson may have shot just 32% from three this past year across high school and 17U Adidas circuit play, but that is not at all reflective of the caliber of shooter he is. That's a product of his significant offensive load and the fact that he does take some crazy shots off the dribble, and if you were going to criticize anything about Peterson's offensive game, it probably would be shot selection and the fact that he can be a little trigger happy at times, but even that is not a big deal to me. He's got a scorer's mentality for sure, but he is still a good passer and an efficient player. But Peterson shot better than 85% on free throws and has all the elements of an elite shooting prospect. So I'm very confident in his ability to threaten teams pulling up and off the catch and off movement being a big time weapon for him at the next level. But remember, these guys these days aren't just elite at one thing, they're freaks. And Peterson is also a gifted athlete and an impressive driver and finisher. He has explosive quickness. He can blow by you with a cross or hesitation or get around a hard show with his speed. And he's a pretty damn good leaper around the rim with excellent body control, a strong frame, and very good length to finish with a 6'10" wingspan, as he shot 70% at the rim this past season, an excellent mark, especially for a guard. But his craft as a driver is also very advanced. He's quite a good ball handler for his size and age, and is super shifty with great footwork and balance. He can just slither through tight spaces, find angles, decelerate, and then on top of his great at-rim finishing, he's got great touch on runners. He's also already very savvy about drawing fouls and has been an elite free throw rate guy, averaging about 9 free throw attempts per game last year. So Peterson is an exceptionally complete and explosive scorer. Last year, he dropped over 26 points per game on 59% true shooting, and he scored 21 and 22 points in his first 2 college outings in just 25 minutes per game. He's pretty much got everything in his arsenal there, but he's also a good passer. Not an elite one, but he makes solid pick and roll reads, has good touch and accuracy, and is a very good jump passer, capable of making aerial adjustments for laydown passes or even a beautiful skip pass like this. Considering where his scoring game is at and how that will bend defenses towards him, which will continue to drive his improvement as a playmaker, his passing is certainly good enough, if not more than that, to believe he will be a legit offensive number 1 at the next level. And to put the cherry on top, Peterson's size, length, and athleticism give him a clear path to positively impacting the game in quieter ways too. He's a very good rebounding guard, having averaged 7.5 boards per game last year, and he's generally engaged defensively with a knack for playmaking on that end. He's aggressive when it comes to generating steals and has great hands with unique shot blocking ability for a guard. He averaged 1.5 blocks per game last year and has notched a block along with 2 steals in each of his first 2 collegiate games. And some of these plays he makes in help or recovering are abnormal. This is not to say Peterson is going to be some elite defender. It's so rare to find a guard who can be that while carrying a huge offensive load at the NBA level. But he rebounds really well, makes plays off ball, and has all the physical tools to hold up on ball and when guarding bigger players off switches. And in a world in which many great offensive guards are now being actively attacked on the defensive end, that, at least, will never be an issue for Peterson. There's just not a hole in Peterson's game. It's really easy to see him being good at everything and a flat-out elite scorer whose game, especially if he continues to embrace playing off the ball like this, works really well pretty much everywhere. The ceiling is extremely high, yet his at least being a good player at the next level is also extremely bankable. So it makes a ton of sense that even among this loaded trio, he stands out as the consensus top guy. And I think he's the best guard prospect we've seen in a long time. But I believe the highest ceiling in this class belongs to someone else, the prodigious talent that is BYU's AJ Dybantsa, a player who has been in the spotlight for longer than Peterson, hyped up as the NBA's next iteration of the great scoring wing for years already. That scoring wing archetype is not one that I am the highest on personally. I'm something of a playmaking, versatility, defense, and efficiency fiend. Because in today's NBA, impacting the game at the highest levels requires excelling in multiple areas to enhance your team beyond just your ability to put the ball in the basket. But I believe Dybantsa is the best scoring wing prospect we've seen since Kevin Durant. That is not a comparison. Best sense does not mean equivalent to, but it's still quite a big claim, and I mean it. And when you get to that level, the exceptional talent is what matters. And Dybantsa is so absurdly gifted as a scorer that it feels like a scoring title should be expected at some point in his career. When you watch Dybantsa, it's easy to first gravitate to his pull-up shooting, the effortless grace with which he rises up from the mid-range or beyond the arc at 6'9", which is incredible, no doubt. But the reason I have been most impressed by Dybantsa's first 2 college games, compared even to the other 2 monsters, has been his driving ability. Dybantsa is a freak athlete. This drive is so absurdly explosive, from the cross to the hop step gather to the 2-footed jump and thunderous dunk. Every step of the way, it's like he's shoving in your face the fact that he is, in every way, by far the best athlete on the floor. To be fair, he is going up against Holy Cross, and they don't exactly have Bob Cousy or Tommy Heinsohn suiting up for him these days, because those guys would have had the answer for this. But Dybantsa's athleticism is undeniably outstanding. He's one of the best two-footed jumpers I've ever seen, springing in the air and just floating with ridiculous hang time that allows him to gather from far out and still soar to the rim. All three of these guys are so good that from time to time, they literally make me chuckle out loud as I watch them, but nobody more so than Dybantsa. The quickness, the nimbleness, the sheer bounce at 6'9" with a 7-foot wingspan just produces so many mind-boggling moments and naturally makes him a weapon in transition. But there is also a sort of mesmerizing pace to Dybantsa's game. As much as he can blow past you with raw, superior athleticism, he's also really shifty with a beautiful hesitation dribble, great paint footwork, and elite deceleration. When you can stop on a dime, hang in the air like this, and hit these shots completely under control, and you're a 6'9" A+ explosive athlete, and you're an elite perimeter shot maker, well, you're just completely unguardable. And I don't see a player in the NBA right now who has that combination of traits like Dybantsa does. I've also really loved his unpredictable movement patterns. I honestly think he's confused the low man a couple times by just taking off from so far out that he ends up with a clear lane. And this is veteran pick and roll manipulation, hesitating to force the defender to fight over the screen, then quickly bursting forward and getting low as hell on this drive for an easy finish against the retreating big. In high school, Dybantsa had some issues with turnovers. His handle was very good for his size, but not infallible in traffic. And he had some issues playing through physicality in the paint, but he's only turned it over once in 2 college games so far, and he looks pretty strong out there. That frame is another separator for Dybantsa compared to your average flashy scoring wing talent that at 18 years old, he's already 210 pounds. He'll want to keep adding more strength, but he's got a good frame for it and he's progressing well. Dybantsa was already a 70% finisher at the rim last year and another elite foul drawer with mature savvy there, attempting about 8 free throws a game. But he looks improved as a driver at BYU, exhibiting another level of control. And the fact that we're seeing this command of pace and leverage and his ability to carve out angles already reflects his limitless ceiling as a scorer. But Dybantsa is not as complete as Peterson right now. His shot selection needs to improve. He can get some scoring blindness and force up a tough shot, and he loves his mid-range pull-ups, which will always be an important weapon for him, but unless he winds up being a KD or Shea level mid-range shooter, which is a crazy high bar that I don't expect him to hit, that shouldn't be at the heart of his NBA shot diet. Dybantsa can always get his shot off given his high release point and good handle. His footwork as a jump shooter is phenomenal, and I do believe he's a gifted shooter. 81% on free throws is a positive indicator, but he only shot 35% on 2-point jumpers last year, so I'd like to see him trade in some of those to crank up his 3-point volume a bit. He historically hasn't been a super high 3-point rate guy, but he did take more threes at Utah Prep last year, about 6 a game, while making them at a 35% clip, but he's taken just 3 triples in 2 college games so far. That's kind of a crazy low number. So he'll always have the mid-range as a crucial counter and a go-to in a pinch, but he has the skill set to be a dominant driver, foul drawer, and 3-point shooter, which means optimal scoring efficiency. So he should lean into that, especially because he can be such an off-ball weapon as a high-level movement 3-point shooter. The footwork and balance at his size is really next level. Although, I do want to emphasize, Dybantsa's scoring numbers are already insane. 25 points per game on over 61% true shooting last year, and he's off to a great start as a scorer at BYU. Dybantsa's playmaking is less developed, and his progress there will be a major key to his reaching his ceiling. He's a decent passer with solid vision for making laydown passes as a driver and spotting cutters, but he doesn't have great velocity or accuracy as a passer, and it doesn't really come naturally to him. That being said, when you're as gifted a scorer as Dybantsa is, and you're just better than everyone else on the floor, opponents and teammates alike, for your entire life up to this point, which has led you to lean heavily on your own scoring ability, it's natural for passing development to come a bit later. And Dybantsa's already made some nice passes at BYU with 3 assists in each of his first 2 games, so he's in a solid place there. Defensively, Dybantsa has an abundance of tools with his size and athleticism. He's got the ideal physical profile of a switchable wing defender and has shown some really impressive moments of on-ball defense, at times smothering opponents with his lateral quickness and length. He has potential to cover a lot of ground and make plays as an off-ball defender, but he hasn't been consistently impactful there and has a very meh stock rate given his athleticism. Defensive buy-in is often an unknown swing factor for a gifted young athlete like Dybantsa, but I feel confident he will at least be solid there with potential to be more. So perhaps there are a couple more question marks with Dybantsa, but there's nothing he cannot improve himself through sheer hard work. He has the most ability of anybody in this class, and he is a competitor with a mind-boggling blend of athleticism and skill that gives him the potential to be the best 3-level scorer in the NBA someday. To me, he is the most fascinating of these 3. But while Duke's Cam Boozer may not be as sexy or intriguing as Dybantsa, no one can question his effectiveness. Boozer's game is defined by power, feel, and versatility. Let's start with power. At 6'9", 250 pounds, he has one of the strongest builds you will ever see from an 18-year-old. And I'm a big believer in strength. The ability to dictate the game physically translates across matchups and into playoff basketball. And Boozer projects as one of the best power players in the NBA. Given that he's also quite coordinated, he can easily knock defenders off balance and power through them as a driver, and he's got a nifty face-up game with great footwork, an explosive spin move, and an elite ability to finish through contact. He's also got real power backing players down, a thunderous drop step, and good craft playing off 2 feet, and he's a damn good below-the-rim finisher overall, having shot almost 70% at the basket last year. And while all 3 of these guys posted elite free throw rates in high school, Boozer is the one who has attempted 17 free throws across his first 2 college games, which makes perfect sense. He is a whole lot of man, and he's really hard to handle without fouling. Expect him to be towards the top of the league in free throws often. Sometimes his drives can be a little out of control, but he tends to win the battle as a driver with a score or a whistle. And he's also just a really tough matchup for defenses. He's too quick and skilled for bigs, but much too big and strong for wings. He may not have a pretty pull-up jump shooting game or a handle that will wow you, but everything he does offensively is very functional and effective. He gets from point A to point B. Although he's already been the most mature grown man on the court for years, this skill set could become even more valuable in the extremely switch-heavy NBA, where mismatch attacking comes at a premium. Boozer could be one of the league's best when it comes to punishing little guys who wind up on him. Boozer is also an elite rebounder, which is where his power and feel intersect. He moves people on the boards with some grown man box outs, but he also just has great instincts and hands. I'd expect him to also be one of the league's best rebounders. But Boozer's feel really shines most with his passing. He has good vision when it comes to dissecting doubles or making kick-out passes from the post, is an excellent processor as a short roll passer, can initiate actions and see the whole floor well from the top of the key, and is an awesome outlet passer. Passing from a big fella is also at a premium in today's NBA, and any team would salivate at the chance to tap into Boozer's skill there in a number of ways, which speaks, of course, to his versatility. Boozer is a true do-it-all player. As much as we focused on his interior dominance, his perimeter game is also legit. Yeah, he's really good attacking closeouts as a driver, but the reason he draws those closeouts is because he can legitimately shoot off the catch. And overall, he shot 37% from deep on over 4 attempts per game last year. He's not a super fluid pull-up shooter, but he can knock down jumpers off the dribble if you give him room. And although his release off the catch isn't quick, as he takes a deep knee bend and dip to get in rhythm for his high arcing shot, his touch is good and is reflected by the fact that he shot nearly 82% from the free throw line, an excellent mark. So he can shoot, drive, post up, handle, roll, pass, rebound, play in transition. He's been supremely efficient and can pretty much do everything for you, at least pretty well on offense, which makes him such a great complementary player, and he's a versatile defender too. Boozer lacks the vertical explosiveness or even the raw size at 6'9" with a 7-foot wingspan to be a defensive anchor as a rim protector. He's only a decent shot blocker, but he'll be a really good switching big defensively. His lateral agility and ability to stay in front of guards and wings is really impressive. Plus, he's got great hands and good instincts for disrupting passes. The guy is just so complete. And real quick, I gotta address the elephant in the room because I know you were all wondering. This is Carlos's son, no relation to Bob, although I would love to take a brief moment of silence for 60s NBA legend and one-time All-Star Bob Boozer. Anyways, I like this tweet from the great Data Baller a lot, and I particularly agree with the last part. The BPM will say Boozer. I do feel quite confident that Boozer will fill up the stat sheet the most this year and be the most efficient. Although they're different players, his excellence reminds me of last year's Duke freshman sensation Flag in that way. And perhaps that means Boozer will simply be the most impactful college player and the national player of the year. In fact, he'd probably be my pick to win that award out of these three. I'd even say, as we look to their NBA futures, Boozer has the highest floor out of these three when it comes to impacting winning, which is what matters. He just does too many connective little things well and too much well overall to not be a dude who you want on your team every day of the week. Power, feel, and versatility, they all translate anywhere. But the draft is, of course, about projection, and while Boozer may win National Player of the Year and may have the highest floor of any of these guys, I'd also say he has the lowest ceiling. To be clear, that ceiling is still an all-NBA level player, but Peterson and Dybantsa have such explosive offensive potential that the upside is a bit greater. So let's get to the big question. Who's the best prospect in this class? Pretty much whoever I watched last. That's how good and how close they all are right now. That means my feelings here are highly fluid and could easily change at some point this year, but right now, I'd have Boozer third, Peterson second, and based on what we saw over the first couple of games, Dybantsa first. If he keeps up this level of driving, that propels his scoring ceiling to such a ludicrous place that I'll buy in on his peak upside and ability to do such unique things on the basketball court the most. But Peterson totally makes sense to me as the presumptive number one guy because of how complete he is. And specifically, those two are so close for me that I could see my opinion changing within weeks. Ultimately, I have literally no problem with anybody having these three in any order. And like I said, my mind here is very open. I don't have a guy. I don't have an agenda. I just love watching all of these dudes play basketball. We're talking about three guys for whom stardom and maybe all NBA status is the expectation. And I know they haven't done it yet, so I'm not counting my chickens before they've hatched here, but I am so confident in all of them and just so impressed by the talent. And if you look at the talent at the top of these drafts over the last 5 years, taking out 2024, which was a total anomaly down year, it hasn't just been super hyped up, it really has been awesome. Like, it didn't used to be this way. From 2008 to 2012, the number 2 overall pick sucked, like flat out sucked every year. And now we just have more prospects who feel too good to fail. Bigger dudes who are more athletic, more skilled, more versatile, with skill sets that are refined for the modern NBA game are just popping up more often at the top of drafts, and this group is the epitome of that. These guys are incredible, and also, because of them, this is the most excited I've been for a college basketball season since I was a wee lad, which rocks. They're must-see TV to me, and following Flag last year, they represent a resurgent wave of legitimately elite American basketball talent going to college basketball. So we've got a long time to figure out which of these players is actually the best. But for now, I'm just fired up they all exist, and frankly, amazed at the fact that NBA prospects are just aliens now, I guess.